Welcome to this Vinyasa Yoga class. We're really going to start to get into some creative sequencing, working the whole body. So we're going to get into the core, into the hamstrings, into the hips, a little bit into the shoulders. But remember to always listen to your body, focus on your breath. And whenever you need to take a break in a child's pose, please do so. Just listen to what you need throughout the practice. It's going to be quite energizing. So let's get started, but remember to just go with the flow and just focus on the breath. Let's get started. In a seated position, we're going to sit in a Sukhasana seated pose, so one leg in front of the other, personal preference to start with. Place the hands to face down onto the knees, roll the shoulders up, back and down, away from the ears, and just close off the eyes. Imagine your spine is pressed against a wall. You have all of the length and space into the back of the neck. And just bring yourself into the present moment, so you're not thinking about what happened before you got to your yoga mat today. You're not thinking about what happened after your yoga class today. Just being present. Bring yourself into the here and now, focusing on the breath, the strong inhales moving in through the nose, the strong exhales out through the nose. And just really expanding, breathing into front ribs, side ribs and back ribs, so we're breathing 360 degrees. And sit bones really rooting down towards the ground. And just do a full body scan. Let's just start from the crown of the head. And just notice if there's any areas of tension or tightness that you might be holding into the shoulders. Maybe it's the hips, maybe the back of the legs. Maybe it's the front of the thighs. Start to direct your breath into these areas. So that's just the very start of it, directing the breath into the areas of tightness and tension into the body. And as we flow today, just remember to deeply breathe and start to soften each pose. As you inhale, allow the breath to come a little bit deeper and a little bit fuller. As you exhale, really find the rooting down into the ground. We'll take a few breaths together. So inhale through the nose for 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Just finding that rhythm for yourself. And take one last inhale through the nose. Make this a big, energizing inhale. And a big exhale out. And slowly start to open through the eyes. Inhale, we'll reach the arms all the way up to the sky, gazing upwards towards the hands. Palms come to touch. Exhale, palms move through heart center. We'll start with a hip stretch. So start to walk the fingertips out in front of you. Inhale, find length and space into the spine, and then exhale, fold forward. So we're trying to keep this flat back. We're trying to keep both hips evenly down onto the floor as you just start to walk the fingertips further out in front of you. You might relax the head, relax the gaze. Maybe you rest forehead onto a block, or maybe forehead comes all the way down onto the floor, or you just keep it hovering off the ground. Just notice the right hip Notice the left hip. Notice if there's any differences in the body today. We always have one side of the body that's a lot more dominant than the other. And this can change around depending on the day. So just bring your focus and your breath into the hips. And take one last breath. Inhale, slowly walking the hands back to our seated position. We'll just switch the cross of the legs so the other foot comes in front. Inhale, both arms reach all the way up to the sky, gazing upwards towards the hands, palms touch. Exhale, palms move through heart center. From here, we'll walk the hands out in front of you, so really extend through the side body waist. Inhale, create length, and exhale, fold. Noticing if there's any differences in the hips, but also notice and relax the shoulders away from the ears. Really pressing the hands firmly down into the ground. And taking one last big oceanic sounding breath in through the nose. And a big exhale out through the nose. And slowly just start to walk the hands up to that seated position. And take a moment. And then we'll roll onto an all fours position. So coming onto your hands and your knees. And taking the knees directly underneath the hips, pressing the hands firmly down into the ground. So really feeling a suction cup up through the wrist. Inner forearms are hugging in towards each other. Core is connected and you're completely solid in this tabletop position. And we'll go for a few rounds of cat and cow. When you're ready, inhale, start to drop the belly, lifting upwards through the heart. The heart is moving forward, the tailbone is lifting high, gaze is slightly forward. Exhale, press the floor away and round into the spine. Tuck the chin in towards the chest. Really hug the ribs in and up to the sky. Imagine you're hugging this big beach ball. Inhale, rising, lifting the heart and the chest. And exhale, rounding into the spine. And let's go for one final round. Inhale, lift. Exhale, contract. And slowly coming back to that neutral spine position, we'll press the floor away, start to tuck the toes under. First downward dog of the day, and the first downward dog of the day always tells us a lot about our body. So start to take the knees off the ground and send the hips all the way up to the sky. And sending the heels down towards the floor. We want to create as much space so the chest is moving towards the thighs. Relaxing the head, relaxing the gaze. The shoulders are rolling away from the ears, so the right elbow is moving towards that left knee and the left elbow is moving towards the right knee. And feel free to pedal out through the feet here, bending one leg, straightening out through the other. It should feel really nice just to start to open up into the calf muscles, into the hamstrings. You might shake the head yes, you might shake the head no, maybe shifting the hips from side to side. Just exploring. And when you're ready, just finding some stillness in your downward facing dog. Take a big inhale through the nose and a big exhale out, hugging those ribs in and up. Look forward in between the hands. We'll step the feet to the front of the mat. Take your feet hips width distance apart. Inhale, create space and length into the spine. Hands onto the shins or onto the floor. Exhale, folding it inwards, forward fold. And taking hold and interlacing the fingers around opposite elbows, just hang the torso loose. You might shift the weight back into the heels. You might shift the weight into the balls of the feet. You might shift the weight from right to left and just try and find that central point where the hips can be directly stacked on top of the heels. And you're really allowing the weight of your head, the weight of the arms to move down towards the ground. And feel free to have a slight bend into the knees if you need to really protect into the hamstrings. Take one last breath. And slowly releasing the arms down onto the floor, bending into the knees, vertebrae by vertebrae, we'll roll up to standing position. Just coming to standing at the front of the mat. Take your toes to touch, heels slightly apart. We'll come into Tadasana. Feeling the rooting down through all four corners of the feet, the rising up through the crown of the head. Hands move through heart center, pressing the thumbs against the sternum, really lifting the chest, expanding through the collarbones. Closing off the eyes. And taking a few moments to reconnect to the breath. The smooth, long inhales and exhales. And whenever you're ready, setting an intention for your practice today. So today's practice will be a little bit creative, a little bit dynamic. So just go with the flow. And sometimes in life we really restrict ourselves from going with the flow. So really allow yourself to do that on your yoga mat today. And maybe it's something that you'll take out into your life. And slowly opening through the eyes, we'll go for a few rounds, energizing sun salutation A's. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up and out to the sky. Gazing up towards the hands, palms touch. Exhale, palms float through heart center, hinge from the hips, keeping that flat back, forward fold. Inhale, lengthen into the spine. Exhale, planting the hands down, stepping both feet back. High plank. Exhale, lowering through your chaturanga. You can drop the knees to the ground or keep the knees lifted. Shift forward, lower the chest, either halfway or all the way down to the ground. Inhale, cobra or upward facing dog, pressing into the hands, lifting the chest. Exhale, downward facing dog, lifting the hips, rolling over the toes, finding a few breaths here. So 3 breaths in through the nose. Inhale. Exhale, that's 1, drawing the navel in and up towards the spine, creating space and length into the right side body and to the left. Inhale. Exhale, 2, keep descending the heels down towards the ground. Take 1 last big breath in. Inhale. Exhale, look forward in between the hands. We'll step or hop the feet to the front of the mat. Inhale, find length and space into the spine. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up to the sky, gazing upwards towards the hands. And then exhale, hands back through heart center. Second round. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale, create space. Exhale, planting the hands, stepping or hopping back. High plank. Exhale, moving through Vinyasa, lowering Chaturanga. Inhale, rolling upward facing dog, expanding the collarbones. Exhale, downward facing dog. Breathing, taking your 3 breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. Inhale and exhale. 1 last breath. Inhale and exhale, look forward between the hands. We'll step or hop the feet to the front of the mat. Inhale, create space and length. Exhale, folding. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up to the sky. And exhale, hands back through heart center. So really starting to warm through the body. Last round. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, folding, Uttanasana. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, planting the hands, stepping or hopping back, high plank. Exhale, lowering Chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Breathe. 3 breaths. Make every breath count. Inhale through the nose. Exhale, 1. Inhale, breathing into the chest, into the back. Exhale. 1 last breath. Inhale, planting all 10 knuckles down into the ground. Exhale, look forward in between the hands. We'll step or hop the feet to the front of the mat. Inhale, finding length. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up to the sky. And exhale, hands back through heart center. From here, shifting the weight into the left foot. A little bit of balance involved in this sequence. Start to hug the right knee into the chest. And you might interlace the fingers around the thigh. Start to draw that knee closer in towards you. Lift the chest a little bit higher. Descend those shoulders down. You might stay here, or using a little bit of core, you might start to extend arms all the way up to the sky. Taking 1 last breath, noticing any wobbles, And then from here, either keeping the arms out in front of you, start to extend that leg back behind you. You might sweep the arms back. Warrior three. Keep turning those right toes down towards the floor. Keep sending that right hip down to the earth as the left hip lifts up to the sky so they can be completely even. And take one last breath. Tricky transition. Bending to the left knee. Sneak that right foot back so you come onto the ball of that back foot. We're coming into our high lunge. Hands move through heart center just for a moment, just to find your stability in this pose. You might widen your stance 90 degree into that front knee. And feel free to have a slight bend into that back knee if you feel that you're dumping any weight into the lower back, so it really extends the tailbone down towards the floor. Inhale, reach the arms up to the sky, building a little bit of heat in the legs. Feel free to stay here or extend the arms back behind you. Hover the chest off the front thigh. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up to the sky. Exhale, folding, arms reach back, chest is hovering, crown and head moving forward, heel is moving back behind you. Inhale, reach the arms up to the sky, last time. Exhale, sweeping the arms back. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up to the sky. Exhale, planting, right hand down onto the floor. Feel free to use a book or a block. Inhale, left arm reaches up to the sky. Crescent lunge twist. Keep bending into that left knee. Keep hugging that right inner thigh up towards the sky, squeezing the inner thighs towards each other. Take one last breath. Exhale, planting left hand down to the floor, framing that front foot, stepping back, high plank. Hold for a moment in this high plank. Press the floor away. Hips are in line with the heels. Heels moving back, crown of the head is moving forward. And then either drop the knees or shift the weight forward. Lower, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Take a big breath in this downward facing dog. Big breath out. Look forward in between the hands or step or hop the feet to the front of the mat. Inhale, create space and length. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up to the sky. And exhale, hands back through heart center. Really nice. Let's go for the other side. Let's see how the other side does today. Shifting the weight into the right foot. Start to bring that left knee closer in towards you. Interlace the fingers behind the shin. Lift the heart a little bit higher. Breathe. Embracing the wobbles. It doesn't matter if you fall. Maybe staying here or extending arms up to the sky, using a little bit more core. And start to extend that leg back behind you. You can keep the arms forward or you can extend the arms back. Warrior three. Finding stability here in this pose. A little bit of dynamic balancing. Bending into the right knee, sneak it back into high crescent lunge. Use your core to do so. The knee is over the ankle, lifting upwards through the chest. High lunge. Stay here or reach the arms up to the sky. If you want a little bit more challenge with balance, you might even gaze all the way up to the ceiling. Take one last breath just as you are. Exhale, sweep the arms back behind you. Just hover the chest off the front thigh. Never say that. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up to the sky. Exhale, just hover the chest. Extend the arms back, energy through the fingertips. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up, back to that high lunge. Last time. Exhale, extend. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, left arm down. Inhale, right arm reaches up, twist. You might keep the gaze down, you might take the gaze to the side, or gaze all the way up to the sky for one last Inhale. Exhale, planting right hand down onto the floor, framing that front foot, step it back high, plank. Take a moment, then shift the weight forward, lowering, hug those elbows in, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog, taking a few breaths. And take one last breath. And look forward in between the hands, we'll step or hop the feet to the front of the mat. Inhale, find space into the spine. Exhale, folding over the legs. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up to the sky. And exhale, hands back through heart center. Let's go for a warrior sequence. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up to the sky. Exhale, folding over the legs. Inhale, find space. Exhale, planting the hands, stepping back high, plank or downward facing dog. Exhale, lowering chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. From here, either staying in your downward facing dog or inhale, right leg reaches up to the sky, flexing into the foot, square off the hips just for a breath, just for a moment, and then bend the knee and open out through the hips. So the heel is dropping towards the left side of the mat. If you want a little more, you might gaze up and underneath the right arm. 3 legs up. Maybe smile. Exhale, rounding knee to nose, step the foot all the way through in between the hands. We'll drop that back heel down to the floor, deep bend into the front knee, rise it up, Virabhadrasana 1. Inhale, arms reach up and overhead. Start to descend the shoulders down towards the floor as you sink slightly deeper into the pose. Find the stability into your center, find the stability into the ground or from the ground. And take one last inhale here. Exhale, slowly open it out, warrior 2. So you might line up heels with each other, maybe extending your stance a little bit more, deeper bend into the front knee as you extend the arms out. And core is engaged, gaze is soft over the front middle finger. And just notice if that back arm wants to drop down towards the floor, keep it in line with the front arm. And taking one last breath. Flip the front palm up to the sky, inhale, reverse your warrior. Just for a moment. One breath in. Exhale slowly when you're ready, taking the elbow onto the knee. Inhale, left arm reaches up to the sky or left arm reaches all the way up and over by the ear. Keep rolling that right knee towards the back wall behind you. Keep hugging that right hip in. You might stay here, you might take hand onto a block, hand onto the ankle or the floor. Gaze is towards that left hand. Take 2 more breaths in this pose. Inhale. Exhale. One last breath, inhale. Exhale, gazing down towards the floor. Inhale, rises all the way back up into that warrior 2. Straighten out through the front leg. You might shorten your stance. Uttita Trikonasana, triangle. So extending from the right hip, extending right fingertips forward. Taking the right hand down onto the shin. Maybe it's the ankle, maybe it just hovers off that leg. Inhale, left arm reaches up towards the sky. We're trying to create as much space and evenness in between the right and the left side body. Spreading between the shoulder blades. And really press firmly into the knife edge of that back foot as if you're pressing that back heel into a wall, and that will really fire up that left hip. Take one last breath. Gazing down towards the floor, inhale, start to rise all the way back up. And then from here, we'll angle the toes inwards, heels slightly outwards. So we'll turn it to the side of the mat. And hands come onto the hips for Pasarita Padottanasana, but we're going to go in a slightly different direction today in a bit of a creative way. Inhale, lift the chest up to the sky. Exhale, hinging from the hips, melting chest down to the floor. Taking the hands directly underneath the shoulders. Inhale, find length and space. Exhale, folding inwards just for a breath. You might have a slight bend into the knees if you need to, and send the hips further up towards the sky. Inhale, releasing, lengthening into the spine. Start to walk the hands further out in front of you. So you're almost going into this wide leg version of a downward facing dog. I might just face you. So you're walking the hands further out in front of you, as far as they may go, planting the hands firmly down to the floor as you send the chest down towards the ground. Head moves between the forearms, the hips lift up towards the sky. And firmly pressing into the outer edges of the feet. This really starts to get into the shoulders and a little bit further into the hips. Take one last breath. And slowly inhale, lengthen into the spine. Exhale, walk the hands all the way back to center. From here, we'll angle the toes outwards, heels slightly inwards, bending into the knees. Start to send the hips towards the heels. Hands move through heart center, lift up through the chest. Goddess pose. And you might stay here with the hands through heart center, or you might start to reach the arms up to the sky as you descend the hips further down towards the ground. And take 2 more breaths in this pose. One last breath. And slowly extending out through the legs. Angle the toes inwards, heels slightly outwards. Hands come onto the hips. Inhale will lengthen into the spine. Exhale, hinging from the hips, forward fold. Hands come directly underneath the shoulders, will lengthen. Exhale, fold. And we're not going to stay here for too long. So inhale, I'm going to turn back around. Lengthen into the spine. We'll walk the hands all the way over towards that left foot or ankle. You don't want to pop the hips out from being completely even and square. So taking the hands either onto the shin, maybe it's the ankle. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, start to draw the chest towards that left leg so we get even deeper into the hamstrings. Keep allowing that right hip to move back, left hip to move forward. It's tricky, especially in my body, to keep the squareness of the hips. So just notice if that's you as well. If you want a little more, you might gaze up and underneath that right arm towards the sky. And slowly walking the hands all the way back to center and then all the way over towards that right foot. Take hold of the shin or the ankle. Inhale, find length. Exhale, fold inwards. And just breathe. Notice if you need to back out of the pose, if you need to bend into the knees. And slowly start to walk the hands all the way over to the right foot. Spin the right toes out. Come onto the ball of that back foot. Extend the right heel out towards the side. Take the right hand inside of that right foot. We'll go for lizard. And feel free to stay on the ball of that back foot or drop the back knee down onto the floor. You might keep the toes tucked or untucked. You might stay here. You might take hands onto blocks. Whatever it is that you need. You might come onto forearms. And taking a few more breaths in this pose. One last breath. And slowly, when you're ready, coming back to center, left hand plants down to the floor. Inhale, right arm reaches up to the sky. Twist. One last breath. Exhale, planting right hand down to the floor, framing that front foot. Step it back, high plank or downward facing dog. Exhale, lower, chaturanga. Inhale, lifting upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Take a big breath in. Big breath out. And let's go for our long, never-ending sequence on the opposite side. Inhale, left leg reaches up to the sky. Keep the squareness of the hips just to start with. 3-leg dog. Exhale, bend the knee and open out through the hips. The heel is dropping towards the right side of the mat, but creating space into the left side body. Firming up the inner forearms, extending through that left elbow. Take one last breath. Exhale, rounding knee towards nose. Step the foot all the way through, in between the hands, and you might sneak it forward. Drop that back heel down onto the floor so the toe is turning inwards, heel is outwards, 40 degrees. And slowly start to peel the chest up. Warrior one, Virabhadrasana one, hands move through heart center, or arms sweep all the way up to the sky. Taking a few breaths. You might even close off your eyes, allowing the focus to turn inwards. And slowly, hips and shoulders open up towards the side. Heels align with each other, extending arms out, warrior two. Just making sure that you're really widening your stance in this pose. So you're really utilising and finding space into the front hip. And as you inhale, you're finding that lift upwards. As you exhale, you're rooting down. Flip the front palm up to the sky and inhale, reverse your warrior. Extending left arm up and over by the ear, extending right arm down that back leg, and it can either be onto the shin, maybe it's the thigh. And slowly coming back, warrior two, taking left elbow onto the knee and inhale, right arm reaches either up to the sky or all the way up and over by the ear. You might stay here, or you might take the hand onto the ankle, maybe it's hand onto the block, maybe onto the floor. Just rotating the chest further up towards the sky, but keeping the alignment as if you're wedged between two walls. And slowly gazing down towards the floor, inhale, start to rise all the way back up. Warrior two will straighten out through the front leg. Maybe shorten your stance if you need to. Uttita Trikonasana. Extending left arm forward, planting left hand down onto the shin. Inhale, right arm reaches up to the sky. You might venture slightly deeper. You might even hover it off that front leg. Take 2 more breaths in this pose. One last breath. And gazing down. Inhale, start to rise all the way back up to center, planting the hands onto the hips. We'll angle the left toes inwards. So we're turning it to the side of the mat. Inhale, lift the chest up to the sky. Exhale, hinging from the hips. You're finding this flat back as you fold. And planting the hands down, directly down onto the floor, underneath the shoulders. Inhale, find length. Exhale, find softness. Softness in the shoulders, softness between the shoulder blades, softness into the hips, the back of the legs. As you just allow gravity to take over a little bit in this pose. Inhale, lengthen into the spine. Exhale, walk the hands all the way forward. So the hands are onto the floor, so you're extending through the side body waist, extending through the spine. Exhale, folding inwards. So you're almost in this wide-legged version of a downward facing dog, so you really start to get into the hips. Take 2 more breaths, descending the shoulders further down towards the earth, but you're not popping the ribs open, you're hugging them in and up. And slowly, when you're ready, gazing forward, and planting the hands directly underneath the shoulders. And we'll take the toes outwards, heels slightly inwards, bending into the knees. Start to send the hips down as the heart reaches up. Hands move through heart center, or arms reach directly up towards the sky. Breathe. Goddess pose. Notice if you naturally want to move forward, if you naturally want to move back. Finding the center point, and imagine there's a metal rod through the spine, so you're really extending and lifting. Take one last breath. And extend out through the legs. Hands come onto the hips, we're going back. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, folding forward. Some hands plant down to the floor. We'll walk our hands all the way over towards that right leg and either taking hold of the shin, maybe it's the ankle. Inhale, lengthen, exhale, fold. You might take right arm underneath that right leg, drawing the chest further, maybe gaze underneath left arm, creating more space into the side body. But imagine there's a cup of tea resting on the base of your spine. You don't want it to move off to right or to left, so you're keeping the hips square. Walking the hands all the way back to center, release. Taking the hands all the way over towards that left foot or ankle this time. Holding on. Get a tight grip. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold. 3 breaths. You might take left arm underneath left leg. Maybe draw the chest through, extending underneath the right arm. And slowly releasing the pose. Extending left toes out. Come onto the ball of that back foot. Taking the left foot out to the side, so you're creating even more space into the hips. Hands plant down to the floor, lifting upwards through the chest, hips are square. We're coming into our lizard pose, so please feel free to stay here. You might drop the back knee down if you did so on the other side. You might come down onto forearms if you have the space. Keep hugging that left knee close in towards the forearm. Expanding into the chest. And taking one last breath into the hip. And slowly planting the hands back down to the floor. If you went onto your forearms, right hand down, inhale, left arm reaches up, twists. Keeping that back knee off the ground, or you can keep it on the floor. And slowly planting left hand down to the floor, framing that front foot. Step it back high, plank. Exhale, lowering, chaturanga. Inhale, lift the chest, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Breathe. Let's go ahead and take our knees to the ground, take our toes to touch, send the hips towards the heels, extend the arms out, child's pose. You can always take the arms back behind you if you want to move more into an embryo pose. And taking a moment to reconnect to the breath. Notice if there's any more space that you've created into the body. Notice if the right hip feels a little bit heavier, or if the left hip feels a little bit heavier. And shoulders softening and descending down towards the ground. And let's get into a little bit of core. Slowly, when you're ready, rising up to a kneeling position. Coming into this kneeling position, if you have any blocks or if you have any books or anything to give you a little bit of extra height, you might use them in this pose. You might try it without as well. So place your blocks or your books slightly further than your hips, or further forward than your hips. Place the hands down onto the floor. Press the hands into the blocks or into the ground. start to lean forward. So you're almost kind of tucking and rounding into the spine, and this really utilizes and gives you a little bit more core stability. So you can really find this hug inwards and this lift upwards through the lower abdominals, so hugging through Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, your core locks, planting the hands down onto the blocks, the ground, whatever it is, and then start to shift the weight forward. See if you can lift the hips. You might stay there, you might shift back, see if you can lift the knees, coming up onto the tops of the feet. It also gives you a really nice stretch for the feet. You might stay here, breathe, noticing the stability and the strength that you're creating into the shoulders wherever you are. Final option, just relax for a minute, placing hands down into the floor, the blocks, the whatever it is, again. And slowly shifting forward, lifting the knees, lifting the hips, maybe you lift the feet, and you hold, and you hover, embracing the shakes, embracing the wobbles. Take one last inhale, big breath in, and exhale. Release, really nicely done. Slowly remove those blocks out to the side, get rid of them. And plant the hands down onto the floor, tuck the toes under, send the hips up to the sky, downward facing dog. Let's get into a few hip stretches. We're going to go for pigeon pose, just to start to wind down our practice for today. If pigeon pose is not for you, you're welcome to lie on your backs and go for more of a figure 4 stretch. Right leg reaches all the way up to the sky, big inhale. Exhale, take the right knee over towards the right tricep, sneak it up high, hold, breathe. Lower the right knee down towards the wrist, breathe. Place the shin down onto the floor, snuggle the right ankle slightly further out towards the side, and start to send the hips down towards the floor. And you can take that right ankle wherever it needs to be. It might be directly by the left hip. You might take it all the way out, and eventually it might be 90 degrees. But just notice if that left hip wants to lift off, keep that left hip turning down towards the floor. Inhale, puff up the chest. You might stay here. And feel free to stay here, feel free to stay upright. If this is enough for you, you might even take blocks, you might even prop them underneath that left leg. Exhale, start to walk the hands out in front of you if you want a little more. Maybe venturing down onto the forearms, maybe it's palms planting down onto the floor, maybe it's forehead. And taking a few breaths here. And we'll hold this for probably about 30 seconds. It's probably about 10 breaths in total. Just allow yourself to really dive into this pose as if you are moving into some cool water. So dipping your feet into a nice blue ocean. Really cooling parts of the practice to allow us to really wind down. Entering finally into our Shavasana eventually. Just direct the breath into that right hip. Allow that right hip to find a little bit more space as you exhale. And as you soften through the pose as you exhale. Take one last breath. And slowly walking the hands all the way back up to seated. We're back to center. We'll sweep that left leg all the way around. So you're shifting the weight into that right leg. Sweep that left leg all the way around. You might place the sole of that left foot into the center of the mat. You might place that left leg all the way over that right knee. You also might sit on a block if you want that extra height and lift for the spine, but descend that left hip down towards the floor. Inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, left arm reaches back behind you. You might come onto fingertips, block, or palms down onto the floor. Inhale, right arm reaches up to the sky. Exhale, hug that knee into the chest and just start to find the twist. Every inhale you lengthen, every exhale you twist, just really allowing yourself to find a little bit more space into this pose. And take one last breath. Exhale, slowly releasing, unraveling the twist. Counter rotate to the opposite side. Relax the head, relax the gaze. And slowly coming back to center. Crossing the ankles, we'll plant the hands down in front of you and just step back into a downward facing dog. You might pedal out through the feet, noticing how the right hip is feeling. And then inhale, left leg reaches up to the sky. 3-legged dog. Exhale, rounding knee over towards that left tricep. See if you can press the floor away. Breathe, hug that knee closer up towards the armpit. One last breath. Then sneak that knee down towards the wrist. Keep hovering that foot, keep hovering that leg. Firing up the core, and then slowly placing the shin softly down onto the ground. Extending left toes out towards the side as you sink the hips down towards the heels. If you went for a figure 4 stretch on the other side, just lying on your backs, taking that ankle over the right knee. And keeping this left foot flexed will really help protect the knee joint. Inhale, lifting upwards through the chest. And then either staying there or melting into this pose. You might even slide a block underneath that right hip if it likes to lift off. Just breathing a lot more space into the left hip now. Melting into this pose. We'll hold this pose for 30 seconds. And normally in my own yoga practice, I like to hold this pose for about 2 minutes. Because I really believe that the hips just need a little bit more time to open and to soften. If the mind wants to wander, just start to bring it back to the breath, bring it back into the present moment, into this stretch. So you're really embodying the pose, and that's what yoga really is all about, is embodying the pose, coming back to the breath, back to the breath, back to the breath, over and over again. So really allow the breath to guide you in this pose. And staying in the practice, especially when things get a little bit tricky and a little bit hard. Allow yourself to just be. And take one last breath. Inhale through the nose, full breath. Exhale, slowly soften, release the pose, walking the hands closer in towards you. Shifting the weight now into that left leg, hug that right knee over. And you might place sole of the foot into the center of the mat, sending the hips down to the ground and going for your twist from there, or taking that right foot over the left knee. Sending the hips down, heart reaches up, right arm reaches back behind you, left arm reaches up to the sky. Exhale, hugging that knee into the chest or taking the elbow outside of the knee. Inhale, lengthen, exhale, twist. Just breathing a little bit more space into each vertebrae of the spine. And exhale, just really twisting, expanding, opening the chest, breathing into the backside body for one last breath. And slowly just counter-rotate to the opposite side. Relax the head, relax the gaze. And placing both feet down onto the floor. We'll start to roll onto our backs, extending the arms all the way out in front of you. And just rolling down vertebrae by vertebrae. Lower back, middle back, upper back. And hug and draw both knees into the chest. Give yourself a squeeze, maybe a rock from side to side. And options for an inversion. You might extend both legs up to the sky, and this might be your inversion for today. Or you might venture into a headstand or a forearm stand or any other inversion that suits you in your own practice. I'm going to stay here with my legs just above the hips. This is a really nice, nourishing pose, just to really start to allow us to descend into our relaxation. You might place both hands onto the lower belly, breathing a little bit more space. But feel free, whatever suits you at this point in the practice. Taking a few more breaths in whatever inversion you're in. And I very rarely drink any caffeine. I just do lots of inversions, and that gives me my energy boost for the day. Just taking a few more breaths. If you're in a headstand, if you're in a forearm stand or any other inversion, just come back to laying on your back. Hugging both knees into the chest, everyone all together coming back. And we'll drop the knees all the way over to the left side, scooching the hips 1 inch to the right, extending right arm out. Supine twist. The gaze just comes softly over the right hand. Knees are really becoming completely heavy over towards the left side. You might wrap up the eagle legs, taking the right knee on top of the left knee. Just doing that full body scan that we did at the very beginning of our practice today. Notice if there's any areas of the body that can just soften further in towards the mat. It might be the shoulders, maybe the hips, and you can just notice if there's any differences now from the beginning of practice. And take one last breath. And slowly hugging both knees back into the chest, we'll go for the opposite side. Keeping your eyes closed, we'll drop the knees all the way over to the right side, extending left arm out. Supine twist. I always love to finish my own practice with a supine twist just at the very, very end of practice. It just allows the whole body to start to descend down into the ground, preparing for Shavasana. If you did eagle legs on the other side, just wrapping up for those eagle legs. Allowing both shoulder blades to release into the mat. And the breath is still flowing in through the nose and out through the nose. Maybe the exhales are twice as long as the inhales, allowing us to move into our rest and digest system, our parasympathetic nervous system, as we focus on the exhale. And slowly just drawing both knees back to center, back to the chest. And we'll extend the right leg out, extend the left leg out, turn both palms up towards the sky. And taking a big, full inhale through the nose, make this the biggest breath of your day. Hold and exhale. Slowly release the breath. And just let everything go. Just let the breath return back to its original natural state of breath. And if you want to focus in this final pose, just allow the breath to move from the base of the neck as if it was warm honey. And just allow that element of warmth to move from the base of the neck into the shoulder blades, finding that softness into the spine. Muscles of the spine can release, relax, and the hips can feel fully cradled and supported by the earth. And the legs can move out to the side. Just allowing yourself to be at peace. Relaxing the fingers, relaxing the toes. Allowing yourself to be completely still in this pose. Shavasana is the most important part of yoga. Just never skip this posture, just allow yourself to really fully embrace it. And slowly, when you're ready, just start to deepen the breath. And start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. On a gentle inhale, reach both arms up and overhead, full body stretch. Maybe drawing the legs towards each other. Exhale, hugging both knees into the chest. Give yourself a final squeeze, maybe a rock from side to side. And then rock all the way over to the right side, placing left hand down into the floor, into this fetal position. And slowly we'll just rise up into comfortable seated position, just as we started today on our mats. And taking your hands through heart center, just giving yourself some gratitude for the time that you spent on your mats today, for sharing your energy and your presence. And thank you all so much for practicing with me today. I hope you enjoyed this class. Please let me know how you got on in the comments below. Namaste.